Hello, everybody. How are you? I am Louise Eddington, the Cosmic Owl of Cosmic Owl Astrology, and I'm here today to talk to you about the Sagittarius Full Moon, and that is coming up on May the 23rd, 2024 at 2 degrees Sagittarius. Always my favorite time of year because I have a Sagittarius stellium and a Gemini moon. This is a full moon on the Sagittarius Gemini axis. If I could give you one big word for this full moon coming up, it's going to be about choices and change. Choice and change, let's call it that. But before we dive in, I would like to ask you to subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment. I try and respond at least with a heart to all my comments. I do read them all. I really appreciate them. And the longer you can watch the video, the better it is as well for the, ALGOR algorithm thingies. Anyway, let's move on. Oh, one other thing I did want to say, I had a wonderfully successful Gemini Venus Star Point webinar or masterclass last week. I'm recording this on May the 8th, and it's now available for download. I will put the link in the description. You can buy it as a download if you missed it live. Because the Gemini Star Point is coming up on June the 4th or 5th, depending where you are. And I am certified in the Venus Star Point work, and I went into a lot of detail about this. So anyway, that's enough of that. I pulled 2 cards for this full moon. Why 2, you say? Well, I pulled one for the full moon itself at 2 degrees Sagittarius. But when I show you the astrology, we also have an awful lot of energy around between 17 and 21 degrees, let's say. And most of it involves the centaurs. And the centauric process of healing that we are going through is quite profound. And of course, a healing process brings the poisons up. So anyway, I pulled a card for both of these parts of this full moon. So the first card I pulled for a 2 degrees Sagittarius full moon was a 2, unsurprisingly, and I pulled the 2 of Cups. So, oh, I should have, no, it's not made my, there you go. I'll actually take a picture of this card and put it on the screen as part of the video. But the 2 of Cups is, this is the Tree deck. There's a discount for you in the description if you like the deck using my link. So I've been using this for a while and I do enjoy the look of it actually, but the shiny, the black, it's feels very of its time. But the 2 of Cups, I mean, again, we're out of kind of the most chaotic month of the year. That doesn't mean there's nothing going on, but this is again like the Taurus new moon that we've just had on May the 7th last night. This Sagittarius full moon is looking pretty nice to me. Anyway, the 2 of Cups. This card represents partnership, connection, and strong mutual feelings of appreciation and love. The feeling of passion and understanding indicates that you have met your twin flame or might meet them in the near future. No, I'm not sure I believe in twin flames, but there you go. But your ideal partner. Focus your intentions on the people and the things that your soul feels strongly about. Your emotions are balanced and your yin energy is shining. The affirmation for this card is, I am welcoming new connections into my life. Those who I seek seek for me. So let's say change, choices, and connection. All right. So okay, so it's in some ways it's a bit more of a Gemini moon. But anyway, the other card I pulled for the centauric healing process is the Devil reversed, which is card number 15 in the tarot, which is a 6. 1 and 5 is 6. But this one I pulled reversed, and this says it's time to release your limiting beliefs, unhealthy attachments or thought patterns, and make a positive change. It might be difficult to detach at first, but you will realize how much better you feel when you are free from the chains of negativity. Look deep inside yourself, your desires and emotions, and face them without fear. Only by knowing yourself fully will you be able to reach your highest potential. The affirmation for this card is, I am detaching myself from everything that is keeping me away from being completely free. And this speaks to me so much of the centauric healing process that we are going through. I've talked about it endlessly on my Substack blog where I write daily reports. Again, there's a link to that below, and I write those for free. But we are going through this process of trauma kind of coming to the surface, which is the poison of a centauric healing process. But then we are moving through and we're finding the tools to help us detach ourselves from these trauma responses and the pain of the past. So this is not about spiritual bypassing or just ignoring the pain. This is really about the pain coming to the surface and it just not holding us anymore as much as it has done in the past. I'm seeing it with clients, I'm experiencing it myself. We are in a profound shift in so many ways. And you go, well, look at the world. It might not look like it, but honestly, it's there if you look like it. Amongst the trauma and the pain coming to the surface, there's the healing is emerging, or the potential for healing. So let's look at the astrology of this full moon, first of all. All righty, here we are. So as I said, this is a Sagittarius full moon, which means the moon is in the sign of Sagittarius and opposing the sun, which is in the sign of Gemini. Now, looking at the moon end of the full moon, this moon is conjunct asteroid Lilith. I call her Talk to the Hand Lilith. She is kind of like the rebellious of the teenagers saying, no, no more, no, I'm not being put in the corner anymore. You know, I'm taking my rightful place and living my truth. Okay. And then an out of sign, as we call it, conjunction to Pallas Athena, the wise owl, the strategic warrior. She has retrograded back into Scorpio, which is the sign of real kind of excavation and detective work. And these two are straddling the moon, these two energies, kind of giving the moon a bit of strength to say, I am, you know, I'm becoming whole. I am finding my truth. I am living freer than I've ever done before. Some other words for Sagittarius are, you know, adventurous, feeling happier, feeling freer, feeling more excited, being more open-minded, being more brave and courageous. But, you know, Sagittarius does have a shadow, of course, as every sign does. And it's can be a little bit too frank, a little bit blunt, and a little bit condescending. So, you know, this is a powerful full moon. So make sure that you are not being that. person, but we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Also, of course, that means Gemini is opposing this, the sun in Gemini. We cannot have one without the other. And Gemini is the child, really, is the young person. This is thinking, this is perception. This is really kind of intellectual curiosity, communication, adaptability. Because it's the sign of youth or the child, it really is saying, look at the world with a fresh eye. Okay, so, you know, this is what Gemini really is all about. Very curious, very uh, intellectually wanting to learn more and more and more and more and more. Now then, look at all this though. The sun is in an out of sign conjunction with both Jupiter and Venus. And Taurus is Venus sign. Jupiter's been in Taurus for quite a while. And these are at the anaretic degree. So I'm going to talk a lot more about that. But these two planets are about to change signs. So I'll talk more about that in a second as well. But they're also in aspect to Neptune, which is also at the anaretic degree. So there's a lot to talk about there. Now then, I mentioned I pulled the second card, the Devil reversed, for the centauric healing process that we are going through. Now, if you remember, on the eclipse of April the 8th, Centaur Chiron was conjunct the eclipse exactly at 19 Aries. I actually interviewed Melanie Reinhardt about this 19-degree Aries, because when the nodes moved into Aries, they always travel in reverse. Chiron was at 19 degrees. When they will leave Aries early next year, Chiron will be back at 19 degrees. So this key to healing, but also the one that stole the poison to save Prometheus, is very prominent in all of this process. Well, all the main centaurs are. Now then, Chiron is conjunct HA-ee-YAH, which is holistic health, but she's also got that kind of preventative seer quality. What do we need to do to find ourselves and to prevent further kind of toxicity and poison getting into our body, I'm going to say. Now, on this full moon, Mars is in Aries. Mars is in Aries as I record this, but in their own sign, Mars wants action, is driven to find this core self and to prevent, any more of this kind of toxicity, to break the patterns, all that kind of stuff. Now, these three are in what's called a semi-sextile aspect to Nessus, which is the revealer of generational abuse, and Saturn. And Saturn is coming up to conjunct Nessus. Saturn has been asking us to let go of self-limiting beliefs, old beliefs that are perhaps from the cultural conditioning we grew up in, all that kind of stuff. This has been going on while Saturn has been in Pisces, but when Saturn, as he's been approaching to Nessus, more of this generational trauma has been coming to the surface or being revealed. Not always massive insights. It's kind of been building. Saturn is about mastery and time. But, for example, I had one thing emerge just this very morning, as I record this, because Saturn is approaching that. It was over something that had been a discussion, and I just, I couldn't see it at first, that, I was like, well, no, I don't feel the sense of competition really with you. And this other person sensed this feeling that I was competing all the time. But then I woke up this morning and I was like, that's the culture I was born up in. this culture of kind of, it's a competition. So if you've got something going on, mine's bigger than yours, or if you've got something to celebrate, let me put you down in some way. Now, I've grown a lot, clearly, but these things come up in subtle ways sometimes. And this centauric process of healing is quite subtle. You need to pay attention to what comes up. Anyway, enough about me. It's just an example. And it's an example of this ancestral, generational, all this kind of cultural trauma from growing up and living and being the product of the culture we were born into. Now then, these three are also in a sextile aspect, which means that these two are in a semi-sextile aspect to Chariklo, Chiron's wife. Holder, space holder, spinner of grace, helping us to spin a new story. And finally, well, not finally, Ceres. They're all aspecting Ceres widely. Even Chariklo, I'm going to say, she's our needs both met and unmet in Saturn's sign, the structures that we live under. Also around this degree, square to this lot, trine to this lot, quincunx to this opposing Ceres is Vesta, our inner flame. And then we have Black Moon Lilith over here in Virgo opposing this conjunction. And, this is shame, vulnerability coming up. This is feeling our lack of safety and security, all coming up to be healed. But we'll talk more about that as we go on. Before I dive into everything, I do want to say that we have some change coming as we move towards the full moon. On May the 12th, the North Node leaves the 15-degree mark where it was sat right through the eclipses. I use the true calculation of the nodes, which means that when we come to eclipse season, which are new and full moons on the ecliptic, basically near the nodes appear to stand still from our perspective. Well, on May the 12th, we've got some more movement. The North Node starts to move back through Aries and the South Node back through Libra, heading towards the earlier part of the signs, the first two decans, and on the second half of their journey through these signs. Okay. Then on May the 15th, Ceres will, as you saw, she's involved in this centauric healing process that we're going through, bringing up a lot around mother wounds, incidentally, but also needs of where our society has not nurtured our needs. Ceres stations retrograde at 21:32 on May the 15th. So she will have moved a few minutes retrograde by the time of the full moon. May the 18th, Venus meets Uranus. And then also on May the 18th, the Sun meets Jupiter. And Venus meets Jupiter just before this full moon. So that is all activating the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that we had on April the 20th at 21 degrees Taurus, which of course would have aspected all that centauric healing process. And of course, that conjunction started a new 14-year cycle. Chariklo, I mentioned, is at 17 Aquarius. She actually stations retrograde on May the 21st. She's still at her station degree on May the 23rd. And at this point, Chariklo and Chiron start separating a little bit again. They are really interesting and do work together. And I do want to tell you a little bit more about those because it's relevant to where we are at this full moon. in a very big way. So you bear with me while I just finish what I was going to tell you here. Before we go back and look at Chariklo and Chiron, May the 23rd, just right after this full moon, first Venus, then Jupiter move into the sign of Gemini, like minutes afterwards, really, because they are so close to the end of signs. And so there's so much shifting and changing coming up to this full moon, but it's not in as challenging, or shall we say chaotic way, perhaps, as the eclipse time. But there's a lot of changes. Ceres stationing retrograde. I consider Ceres a personal planet in the way I work. She's officially a dwarf planet, so nobody shoot me for using the wrong terminology. Now to Chariklo. Chariklo stationing retrograde as well. So 2 retrogrades, North Node moving, or the nodes moving off their eclipse degree, and then Venus and Jupiter changing signs right after the full moon. That's a lot of change. And the Sagittarius full moon with the sun in Gemini are immutable signs, which is changeable, bringing change, preparing us for the new project when we move back into cardinal signs later. So I did say I wanted to talk to you about Chariklo and Chiron. Chariklo and Chiron are in an ongoing sextile on this full moon because Chariklo has just stationed retrograde. They're moving apart for a little while again, but I want to show you something about these two that work together because they are one of the cosmic partners. You know, she held space she was Chariklo's, Chiron's wife, and she held space for his while he was wounded and he had the wound that would not heal. She kind of would have been his doula, his nurse, his protector. Well, back in 49, a long time ago, look where Chariklo and Chiron were. They were at 3 Sagittarius, which is 1 degree from this full moon, as these two are starting to really speak to each other again. Now then, they would by 1994, because they've got different cycles. Chiron's is 51 years, Chariklo's is 62. So they move at slightly different speeds. So they're coming together. So that would have been 49 at 3 Sagittarius, would have been the start of their synodic cycle of working together. By December the 13th, 1994, Chiron would have moved to Virgo, leaving Chariklo behind in Cancer, and the two perfected a first. Well, they would have moved all the way around because that's the way they work, but they were in a sextile aspect. And I'm not going to spend ages on this, but I do want you to quickly look at this. Then January the 3rd, 1998. I'm not going to check if there was more than one exact, because I just want to give you an idea of their pattern of working together. By January the 3rd, 1998, they had moved apart and were in a square in Scorpio and Leo. And now they've been moving closer together again, because that's just the way they do. And look at this. We are heading towards their next sextile aspect, but that's their closing sextile aspect. I forgot to look at the opposition. Let me look at that. Oh, goodness me. Silly me. No. Oh, no, they won't oppose each other till, wow, 2050. All right. So we had the opening sextile. We had the opening square. They never got to opposition, so they're going back towards a sextile again. All right. So that's the first one of those. Several of them is coming in 2028. But these two are working together. These are the two primary drivers, it feels to me, of this centauric healing process. With Pholus and Nessus and some of the other centaurs, I've got to add there's one more I've got to add in, but I need to research her a little bit more. But anyway, they are working together. Okay, so 2028 we get the first sextile between them exactly. But right now they are kind of keep getting close, working together, and you know they're not coming together yet. But then they will never come together again, since not in my ephemeris range. You know, I don't know when they will next be conjunct. My chart does not bring it. So this is a really long cycle of healing, but it is important when they come together in their sextile, is what I want to say. So if we think about when the first sextile was, that was in 1994. And that was actually a good healing time for me in many ways. So you could look back and see what was happening for you, because it's a nice supportive aspect. The two working together closely, 25 degrees, 25 degrees. But then we started to separate again. So now they're coming together to work together again, broadly. But I also wanted to say that I have been in this whole conversation, I'm trying not to get too involved in it, about rulerships. With all these newly discovered bodies, you know, I think we have to ditch the term rulership. So if you think about the sign of Sagittarius, it is very much about half man, half horse. Okay, if you picture it, it's the archer, the man's body on the horse, galloping along with the bow and arrow, which is very chironic. Okay, and the two were at 3 degrees Sagittarius when they came together in 1949. But that's before they were discovered, you know? But what my point is that this indicates to me that, yes, Jupiter could be said to rule Sagittarius because it rules belief and things. But we are finding, as we move into these multifaceted quantum times, that different planetary bodies have different kind of energies with different signs. I kind of feel like we need to dump rulership altogether. You know, there could be several planets that, or several planetary bodies that are more in more of that energy, perhaps more aligned with it. I don't think they even guide them really, although I use guides sometimes. This is all emerging for me anyway, but this is part of this full moon, right? It's on my Mercury. Making these decisions, thinking about what's true, what's real, what's true for me, and listening to others' opinions coming in. This is really what this full moon is about. Now then, I usually look at the number and I haven't done that yet. So let's look at this. It's a 2-degree new moon, full moon, sorry. This is about dilemmas, ambivalence, polarity, good, bad, either or, joy, sorrow, love, hate, rich, poor, ability to feel and use emotions, balance, judgment through intuitive awareness. And I think that last part is the key bit, because we are moving into a time of quantum science. We've discovered everything is wave and particle, possibly glued together by what scientists call dark matter or some kind of substance that kind of binds things together. We're trying to discover how the cosmos really works. I don't know if we ever really will fully, but we're discovering more about how it is. And I'm okay with the not knowing because it works. But really, at its heart, the two is about developing that intuitive, creative intelligence, whatever you want to call it, combining the rational, the left and right brains, combining all that intuition and the kind of evidence, empirical kind of energy, and bringing it together, Gemini, together, right? And so, the two really is about that coming together, bringing it together. Two is in some numerology said to be more of the divine feminine, with the one being the masculine. But if you think of two, it's in the binary system, there's one, and two ones make two. But anyway, really the two positively is kind, charming, insightful, sensitive, diplomat. All right, but then everything always has a shadow, of course, and that can be indifference, unable to take responsibility, being insensitive. So, for example, a Sagittarius energy can be a little bit insensitive, bringing out the blunt side, not being very aware of what's true for other people, being right, all kinds of things like that. So you can see that this is really one of integrating listening, understanding, curiosity into what you believe and speaking your truth and so on and so forth, because it's a full moon. So yes, it's duality, but duality is really the bringing together of all opposites, day, night, male, female, yin, yang, coming together with one another, okay, in a partnership. So, I kind of feel like as we approach the full moon, now we're under the new moon, we do know that like peace negotiations are underway in the Middle East. Hamas accepted one proposal, Israel didn't, but they're coming back with other ideas. At least people are talking. There's also, more and more talk of a two-state solution, which Israel doesn't want, but that's too, so what are the possibilities here? Anyway, now then, I did say I wanted to mention that we have these out of signs conjunctions, and the ones that most matter, I think, are the Venus and Jupiter coming together at the very last degree, the liminal threshold degree of Taurus, which is our most rooted, embodied, steady sign. Venus and Jupiter are the great other benefics. They are the generally the more creative and expansive and beneficial energies of the planets. But again, everything has shadow. Jupiter can be over extensive. Venus has a shadow side as well, can be quite shallow, things like that. But they're coming together in the sign of Taurus at 29 degrees, the anoretic, challenging kind of no man's land degree. But if you think about the numbers, 2 plus 9, what does that make? An 11 master number, but 2. Wow, another 2. And these two are in a sextile to Neptune in Pisces, which is about faith, belief, and, if you think about these liminal degrees, they contain all the energy of both those signs, Pisces and Taurus, earth signs. Stability, rootedness with the physical, the senses, Neptune, the most intuitive and kind of godlike sign, if you like. This is mixing wave and particle at those threshold degrees, saying it's time to really realize this total interconnectedness of all that is the physical, the material, the empirical, and the intuitive and the spiritual coming together. We also have Pallas Athena, of course, opposing Jupiter and Neptune, sorry, Jupiter and Venus in Taurus, and in a trine aspect to Neptune. And she is in the sign of Scorpio, another water sign, but that's that investigative sign. She is digging deep to create strategies to move forward in this non-polarized way, in this coming together time and listening to each other. It's quite fabulous to my mind, to be quite honest, this. We can't see it without all the cycles going on really as well. And the Jupiter-Venus conjunction, they are in quincunx aspect to the last degree of Libra, which is where the Venus star point, the first Libra star point, came in on October the 22nd, 2022. Both of Venus kind of signs, if you want to give the rulership, but it's about yin and yang coming together as well. There, the physical and the mind, air energy, air and earth coming together, making adjustments to work with each other. So this is really powerful. We're going to get strategies. We're going to get a lot of ideas. There may be a lot of communications that help you to shift your beliefs a little bit, or shift how you see others, to perhaps shift this thinking everything that you think is really right, but also giving you the ability to express your truth. Okay, so that's very powerful as well. Now, you know, I did talk a little bit about this centauric healing process, but all of this pattern together, I actually kind of feel like I may need to draw a line or two. So let me get I don't want this thick line, so bear with me, borders, blue. And now we'll go to a line. Okay, I'm just going to quickly draw some lines on just to kind of show you how this looks, and then I will share. Should have drawn it on before, and it's a bit lopsided, but I'm just going to show you the pattern. I think there is an official name for this configuration, but I'm not going to look that up now. But here we go. These two, oh, sorry. Okay, these two are in sextile to each other. I managed to get rid of that line. This is Black Moon Lilith. This is our shame, our vulnerability, really for, you know, being fully human. Virgo is very much a sign of holistic being. Cancer is in the sign of, Vesta is in the sign of Cancer, which is birth, but it's also sense of safety and security. Vestal virgins really kept the fire going to protect the hearth. So Vesta feels very protective in the sign of Cancer, protective to our own sense of safety and emotional security, ruled by the moon, of course. And then, there, that's better. Then look at this, these energies, all right? You know, these two are semi-sextile, semi-sextile, semi-sextile. These are square to each other. These all speaking to each other and being held up by this. This is spinning a new story, addressing where our needs have not been met, letting go of limiting beliefs, finding the core self and saying, what do I need to do to heal myself and therefore to ripple out and create something very new. That's it in a nutshell, really. That's what I wanted to show you for where we're at with these centauric healing processes. We cannot look at this without kind of, I know I kind of give a lot of numbers and things going out, but where we're at, in my opinion, as I follow, which is why I write every day, because it keeps me really in alignment with where the patterns are, where they were, where we're going. We are really kind of, coming to terms with the trauma and the PTSD and CPTSD of living under the society we've been living at for many years, then generations and centuries. And we are moving into a very, very new age. It's been mentioned before that Neptune is going to change signs. Uranus is going to change signs. Pluto is in the process of changing signs. HA-ee-YAH just changed signs. Sedna just moved into Gemini. Well, in fact, Sedna is conjunct the sun on this full moon. I didn't even mention her. We are in a time never seen in human history that we know of, to be quite honest. We are moving into a time that is going to look unlike anything we've ever known. And we are in a process right now of this healing time. I learn from you, comments, I learn from clients, I learn from my own experience, I learn from reading, I learn from watching the world. But I had a client yesterday, of course, I'm not going to give her personal things away, but we were both very excited talking about some of these new healing processes that are just healing PTSD like rapidly when people choose to look at it and do the healing. That people are becoming, the fight, flight, freeze response that's taken us into this disconnection and fear. This says fear, flight, freeze, fawn. Anyway, you get all those ones. We're recognizing it more now because people are stepping into this process, this centauric healing process of recognizing their pain, but then bringing awareness to it and going, where do I feel that in my body? Which part of me would normally have attacked or would have frozen or flight, taken, shut the door, run away? I think we've all done them. Because we've lived in a very toxic culture and society, and the toxicity has built up and up and up. Although I think it's been toxic all the time, and we now see it more. But my point is our responses as we move into this great period of change are getting faster. We recognize, oh, I feel like I'm freezing. Okay. And now I've got the tools to come out of it. I have another friend on Facebook who talked about she's got severe CPTSD, and she went into freeze a couple of weeks ago. She shared about it. She got some support. She got some help. Just talking about it helped. And she came out of the freeze faster than she'd ever done before. That's where we're at. Okay. And this full moon is part of it. We've got a long way to go. We've still got all these outer planets to change signs. We've got Pluto HAAIAH squares to come, that I've written about. We've got that sextile of series of Chiron and Chariklo to come starting in 2028. There's, you know, we are in the process, but it's speeding up, in my opinion. Okay. Yes, the resistance is still there. People, I don't want change. I want it to stay the way it was. Let's keep these closed systems. Let's say, yeah, no, this is how it should be. Some people are being pulled back. I read that Russell Bland has now gone and got baptized as a Christian. Not sure what church. I think it's Catholic. Some people are retreating to the known. Interestingly, a couple of very kind of MAGA Republicans have too gone back to the Catholic Church. So, but I predict that those institutions are probably going to die eventually, and we are going to step into something very, very different, and that's more unity consciousness and connecting the intuitive, the spiritual with the physical. So there's my little pulpit for the day, seeing as I'm a Sagittarius and this is on there. If you don't enjoy my videos, you can go and watch somebody else. But the astrology is telling me that this is the direction that we're going in. Does that mean there won't still be stuff happening? Of course, you know, but there's still going to be earthquakes and all the earth things. But I do predict that we are going to be moving into a much less dualistic, less polarized, and less separatist world. Much love. And don't forget to subscribe.